Start off with another kiss. I think we finished the show number. Oh, let's get our microphone happening. There we go.
Okay, you're in. Ready? Go.
Well, we're recording now.
We're recording. That's recording.
That's recording, and this is recording. So, welcome to the Golightly Marshall Hour.
And which show?
Show
is this
number
one?
4.
Number 4.
Show number 4.
Well, isn't that lovely?
This is take 2 of show number 4. since we have our now very professional, what's the name of it? Yeti microphone that just arrived via the very loud knock at the door. Was that the dude that knocked at the door? Every time there's a loud knock at the door, a parcel delivery, these thoughts go through my mind: is it the police again after me? How many times did they knock at the door last year for me?
Yeah.
For some infraction of their policies and procedures, like fronting up to be fingerprinted when I didn't, because I was driving without my license on my persons and all kinds of things. So, you know, they've got
so pathetic. There was in Victoria, which is where in Queensland, so Victoria's down the South of Australia. They had a recruiting program some years ago. They wanted 1966 new policemen, because 1966 is Lucifer in the Hebrew Concordance.
Yes, not 2000 or 1900
Yeah,
or
right,
even.
no, it's got to be
It's got to be 1966 in
Talk
the
about
official
in your face.
report. So, yes, Luciferian Masonic Club. So, moving right along, what are we talking about today?
Well, I'm encouraging people to get out there and spread the word about the Batman.
Yes, the Batman Club. Hirad, well done, Hirad. He's already changed his icon. He's a Batman.
You've got to realise that not only are you in a war that all these demons are trying to kill you, whether you believe in demons or not doesn't matter, they are trying to kill you. They believe it. Okay? It doesn't matter what you believe, they believe it, so they're going to kill you. So that's why they've set up all these nuclear material dumping all around the world, and then the reactors and all that kind of stuff. And all the water's pouring in from the reactors from France and England into the English Channel, so people's children are getting leukemia just because they're walking down the beach. So they don't mind, because the percentage is not, when they say that it's not that up that much, because kids get leukemia every year, so it's only up by about 3%, so that's nothing. Right. Oh, yeah. So they do intend to kill you all, and the reason is, we can go to the flood story. What's been kept out of your psyche is the fact that you're reincarnated.
Mm.
And if you study the Gospels, it'll point out pretty clearly that you've got to fear him that can kill both body and soul in hell. And if this ain't hell, what is? You got GMO food, Monsanto, seed, you've got diabetes that comes out of your cooking oils. So if you're cooking with oil, it's either soy, which causes infertility in children and lack of sexual development. It also causes all sorts of horrific things in animals, like hair growing on the inside of the mouth and deformities in the 3rd generation. So you're only in the 2nd generation now of eating soy, and it's a cooking, and soy milk. Oh, it tastes so good. I mean, here it is. If it says so good, for example, on the shelf, don't drink it. Mm. This is the corporations trying to lure you in with another seductive.
Obey and consume.
Obey and consume.
Mm. Remembering in hell everything was reversed, so all of the advertising that they try to dupe you with to consume their products, then it's the absolute reverse. Yes, just touching on soy, because the world is consumed by soy. It's in baker's flour. It is known as the abominable bean. It has 38 deadly toxins in it, and even after fermenting for 5 years, removes 37, leaving 1 remaining toxin that will strip your body of vitamin B12. So there is no good thing about soy in any way, shape or form, and it was only ever intended for crop rotation because it adds nitrogen into the soil. It was never intended for animal or human consumption. So drop everything as much as you can from your diet that contains soy. Now, touching on the oils, it's the polyunsaturated oils. So whether it be corn, soy, flaxseed even, canola, which is rapeseed, isn't it? Canola, and they changed the name of it. These are deadly because they are polyunsaturated. So just think of poly as in polymer, plastic. They create a micro-thin plastic film over your cell insulin receptors, making it impossible for the insulin to dock into the cell, but will unlock the cell to let the sugar from the bloodstream in to give life and energy to the cell. Now, we proved that because when we went to Fiji, we were not knowing, but we gave the MMS2, Jim Humble's stumbling upon MMS2, which is simply calcium hypochlorite.
Yeah, we used the calcium hypochlorite straight out the pools store because they use it for shock treating pools, and your body is a pool.
It's a swimming pool. It's 82% water.
Now, coincidence. The man that was doing the operations over there, which is called the chop. So you get to the point where you have diabetes in Fiji. Every country has got a certain, and every island has got a certain type of disease that they target you with. And in this particular case, Fiji is targeted with diabetes too. And it's a very, very harmful disease because you go blind, you get your legs chopped off and all this kind of stuff. You get ulcers. And,
due to a lack of circulation because the blood becomes like sugar.
So what happened was we was able to take the cell receptors, which have little antenna sticking up from each cell, and if this insulin comes along and it can't dock in those because it's covered with a plastic, a polymer, but if it does dock, then the side of the cell opens up for the sugar molecule to go in. So that's how your body works. It's a beautiful thing. So the key is floating past in the insulin, it can't dock, and the ones that do dock take up the space and they can't be released because they haven't done the job. So it's a key that's trying to be opened. It doesn't happen. However, we discovered how to do it overnight.
Yes.
We actually went on the internet to looked at how the insulin works in the diabetes too, and then we found that our first customer, when I say customer, first lady,
first very sick woman. We didn't even see her. We were just told about her son.
We sent the pills home, capsules home, and she was cured overnight.
Yes. Now, obviously, it's the calcium hypochlorite that was dissolving the plastic film over the cell receptor, and we had the same response for the many, many, many that we ended up treating after that, overnight getting their life back. So it's the oils, the plastic oils, and I read a line from a doctor. So, well, what do you expect when your cells become like DuPont? Hello, plastics. That was confirmed when we got back to Australia. We were in Toowoomba for 11 weeks. Just confirming, 11 weeks in Toowoomba, we had dinner, a couple we were just invited home to dinner. So we're telling of our experience in Fiji and the polyunsaturated oils. She said to me, a friend of hers worked in a crematorium, and she had been told that the bodies, you could tell which bodies ate butter all of their lives versus the bodies that ate margarine, which are your plastic oils. Because the bodies that ate margarine throughout their lives left a plastic coating on the top of the furnace. Hello, if that's not confirmation, I don't know what is. So cut out all of your polyunsaturated oils. The only oils you should be consuming that your body needs, because they are a medium chain fatty acid, is butter. Butter is better. Olive oil, a virgin cold pressed olive oil, never ever heated. Have it over your cooked vegetables or your salad vegetables, and then the only oil you should be heating and consuming is virgin cold pressed coconut oil. It is a medium chain fatty acid. All of the other ones are a long chain fatty acid, and they cannot be made available to your body, and they set up a carcinogenic environment in your body that not only creates heart disease but cancer also. So that's your oils. Get rid of them. Go back to butter, olive oil and virgin coconut oil. So that's the kind of educating that we did to the natives, and we saw amazing results using the calcium hypochlorite, available in every pool store on the planet. Just a size 0 capsule is enough because it becomes hypochlorous acid in your stomach, which is your immune system. Go and look up hypochlorous acid and immune. You will see that it is your immune system. No, now you continue. What's this program about? The creation.
No.
Animals.
No.
Before the flood.
No, I was going to say something. The man who was doing most of the chop over there was an Indian doctor.
Ravi.
And turns out he becomes my nephew. Because he comes to Australia and he hooks up with my niece. And he's a very educated man. And he was the man who was performing the chop on all these poor native people because there's not got no cure for it. So he ends up coming to Australia and then ends up working for the Jews down in Melbourne. They paid him $250,000.
No, they paid him
$500,000 to go work for him, right? So he buys himself a new house and sees bands, blah, blah, blah. Now, that's not bad coming from India. Could be a step up into the class system. However, we're having a meal with him, and he tells me that he was first off working in Fiji, where he was, because he's an orthopedic surgeon, was cutting people's limbs off. Right? So I said, oh, we went there and we cured it overnight. And to this day, there's more people cured of diabetes 2 in Fiji than there is anywhere else in the world, in percentage of former illness to a cure. It's spread like wildfire. So I said, was also curing AIDS up in New Guinea, and cure for malaria, which is the biggest killer in the world. And he didn't say nothing. He just got up and went to bed.
Why is it so?
Why is it so?
Well, what did was it the neurologist in Canada say to you?
Yeah, I had a back operation, which is when they tried to kill me.
What year was that?
That was, let me think now, 1974.
And what did they do?
They put this dye in my back, which was later banned, but people who had this dye in their spine, they do an x-ray for a myelogram, and then they take it out again. And it's about, I'm not sure whether it was 15 or 15 cc's, I think, that they couldn't take back out. So they left it. And what happens is the nerves that run down your spine, and there's an outer layer on the inside of your spinal canal or sac, and it's called the andrachnoidea, which is like a spider's web. And this particular material is an oil, and reacts to the cells in the walls of your back, in the nerves, and all these millions of certain nerves you've got going down, each individual going up your brain. They fuse together and short out. So one gives you agony. How about a couple of 100,000 all fused together? Well, this is what happened to people, so they end up banning it. But I dare say that they did that sort of thing because it's satanic, and because they knew what was going to happen. They did it with me and left it in. Well, 20 odd years later, and they took out the wrong disc in my back. So, no cure, right? So 20 years later, I'm still having a problem with my back because I took the wrong disc out. And by this time, they're going to do a myelogram, a MRI, which is a magnetic resonance imaging. And it's a very high magnetic field. So what they do is they'll do an x-ray of what they call the orbs, which is your eyes, and see if there's any metal. You might have been grinding with a grinder or something, and it gets a metal. Could be lodged in your eye, and you don't notice it. So if it goes into an MRI, it can pull it through into your brain. That's how powerful the magnetic field is. So the guy who did it, he looked at me and he said, "You just had a myelogram." I said, "Yeah, about 20 years ago." And he said, "Well, it's all throughout your brain. It's all throughout your nervous system. It's in your eyes. It's in the optic nerves." I said, "Wonderful." So they tried to kill me with that because it didn't work. So it didn't affect any part of my body, really. But I played on that, and that's how I ended up taking it to the Workers' Compensation Board because it was an insurance job. So when they seen what it was, they said, oh, what are we going to do? So the guy who had operated on me, his name was Gordon Thompson. He was one of the top surgeons in North America. He was a lecturer in Boston, in fact, and would come back to Vancouver and do operations there. And he was a head surgeon there, neurologist, I think. And he had a fire in his office, in the actual filing cabinet. And you wouldn't believe it, but my file was burned. Spontaneous combustion. Didn't burn anything else, but my file was burned. So therefore, suing him was out of the question, because all records of it were gone. So the Workers' Compensation Board, the guy who was looking after me at that time, was an Australian, all of them are actually. And he said, oh, what are we going to do? He said, I know. The fellow who injected your back, he's dead now, we'll blame him. So they pensioned me off on that basis. Small pension, but it helps. They ripped me off there, of course, but that's another story. But this is what happens in my life, that they are trying to kill me right from day one. And why would you say that? Well, what the prophecy is all about and what you don't see in your satanic churches. But Muhammad had it right because he had read the letter by Caiaphas, and Caiaphas had Jesus goes to me appear to him after he had made the decision to have myself crucified. And that was very worrying to him because they were all waiting for their Messiah. So as it turns out, he's in his office and he's told his servants not to disturb him. He's in there with his wife and his father-in-law. And then Jesus, the ghost, shows up. And he just wants to sink into the floor. Well, based on that account, he resigned from the Sanhedrin, which is in Babylon, which we've mentioned before. It all comes from Babylon. And Judaism, Babylonian, Talmud. That's what it's all about. And satanic worship. So he wrote a letter and resigned. Well, that was in Constantinople. And when Muhammad took over with the Muslim hordes, he got hold of that and he read it. And that convinced him that Jesus was, in fact, who he said he was. And the Virgin Mary, of course, was a virgin because God's soul comes down to the earth to be conceived within the baby that is fathered only by the Father, because the Father can't have a father. You can't have the Creator having a father to father him on the earth. So he picks a virgin, which is particularly a wonderful family of royals that were coming out of Ireland and then to Cornwall and then over to England with, this is where Joseph of Arimathea, who was a tin man from Cornwall, one of the richest men around, he was sailing back and forwards, and that's why I, at the age of 12, or up slightly 13, went to teach in the universities in Glastonbury. And there were 60 universities there, and it was a world centre for education. Of course, you don't hear about that either because the people that control the encyclopedias and newspapers and the history books and so forth, they never talk about the 60 odd universities where everyone in the world at that time, as far as away as China and India, would come there to be educated. So that's where I was for that period of time. So what we're going to talk about today is the giants of old. So this is actually scooting around it a little bit. But in the old days, if you look in your Bible, there is references to the giants which had 6 fingers and 6 toes. Now, what is that telling you? 6, 6, 6, 6. Okay? And that is how many times the word Lord is found in the King James Bible. Now, remember, King James was a Catholic raised by Freemasons. His mother was forced to abdicate. He was then inheriting the Kingdom of France. That's what the French Revolution is all about, to get rid of the connection to the royal line. And then also, it was William Shakespeare, who's Edward de Vere was his real name, was the 17th Earl of Oxley. And he was responsible for convincing Elizabeth, who beheaded Mary, Queen of Scots, the mother of James, when he was 21 years old and a king of Scotland. So she was dying over a 2-week period. He convinced her that if she's going to go to heaven, you've got to repent. And this is where the naming of James, who was a Scotsman. Of course, the English regarded Scotsmen as being less than dogs. That's where your Talmud comes in again. Right? They didn't believe that they were part of Judah. Right? The Jews, the promised people, and that's what it's all about. So that the promised people were behind the scenes that is manipulating Freemasonry because they're Jews. Right? They're Talmudic Jews from Babylon. That's
so they're not of Judah.
Not of Judah at all. That is why they've been watching the true royal family is not hard to find. Burke's Peerage has even got it in it. But they knew precisely who the Messiah must come through, because they knew what Caiaphas knew and what Muhammad knew, that the soul of Allah, Yahweh, Jehovah, Yahweh had come down, God had come down through the body of Mary to be conceived by the Holy Ghost and then become the Jesus figure that died on the cross to fulfill the prophecies of the Old Testament, which was an abomination, which said that if you have a sin and you want to be repentant of it, you can pass it on to the lamb. So they get a spotless lamb, the most valuable lamb, they give that to the priest, and then they'll impart the sin would go on to the lamb. Then he'd cut the lamb's throat, then he'd take some blood and put it on the right ear or the left ear, and the left thumb or the right thumb.
No, it's the right. It's the right side.
Right, is it? And the right toe. And then on the horns of the altar, like that is real intelligent. And the idea being is that Lucifer is so stupid, he can't see the sin go from the man into the lamb and can't see through the blood of the cut throat that goes over the white garment of the lamb.
Listen, just while we're touching on that, circumcision.
Stupid. If you were meant to be born circumcised, you would have been born circumcised. You don't get a Jew to do it. That's the mark of the beast. Oh yeah.
Hello.
How about cutting off the end of your nose? So this is how stupid it is. You've got a perfect human being and you've got to cut the foreskin off a child. And then the rabbi sucks the little child.
There's stories circulating that the rabbis, there's been X amount of children that have been given herpes from that very practice of, it's disgusting. Yeah. It's vile. Judaism is a sexual...
Vile abomination.
Totally. The crucifixion, we've covered this in one of the You Are Soul YouTubes that you can look up. The crucifixion was all about sexual perversion.
The idea was the scourging of the body made the body bleed, so therefore the sin of Jesus by forgiving sins, that is blasphemy in their mind, because that's not Lucifer forgiving sins. He's saying it's the Father forgiving sins because he is the Father and I one. So they're saying, well, for scourging, covering blood, the true God of their God, Lucifer, cannot see the sin of Jesus through the blood. That's what that was all about. The crown of thorns is the rough area of the penis that has been cut by the slashing of the foreskin when they take it off a baby. It leaves little scars. So that's what the crown was all about. The entire thing is so macabre, it defies description. Then there was the garment of Jesus that was without seam. That means it's a skin, right? So the penis has no seam on it, right? So it's all one piece of skin, right? So they chopped a lot off. That leaves a scar tissue. Therefore, the crown of thorns is on top of the garment covered in blood without seam. That's what these silly bastards taught. So coming to the earth was not to change the law, but was to fulfill the law. But also fulfill the prophecy of Isaiah, who said that the only way to defeat these bastards is to demonstrate resurrection from the dead. And that's what happened. So that's why Caiaphas, he was convinced, and he's the man who caused it, he was convinced absolutely that... Right, now, going back in history, before the flood there was animals that walked around weighing 100 tonnes or more, 120, 130 feet long. Now the biggest creature on earth today is a blue whale, about the same weight, same length, And if it was beached, it couldn't breathe because it hasn't got the strength to lift its muscle up around its lungs, or any whale for that matter, of a reasonable size. So a lot of whales beach themselves and they die of suffocation. A lot of people, especially in Australia and New Zealand, they try and push these whales back out to sea. And it's caused by the sonar system that's used by the United States Navy. Confuses the whale. And drive them crazy, don't they? So there were giants in those days, and one of the stories, I think it might be Numbers or one of those, Og. And he had a bed that was converted to English, would be just under 16 feet long and 7 feet wide. Something like that, huge. So they were talking about the last of the giants, and they had 6 fingers and 6 toes. And these people had, of course, come to the earth after the flood by reincarnation through the line of Ham. Prior to that, what happened was, as we crossed over the solar system moving northwards, pulls the planets behind the sun. And the sun crosses over the solar system and ducks back and forward. So the last time round it went down and then come back up again, and it crossed, which I was predicting for years, that was going to occur on the 11th of December 2011. So you find now that all of the cloud patterns you can see in the satellites, in the northern hemisphere they're going counterclockwise, in the southern hemisphere it goes clockwise. Because the Coriolis effect is not caused by the Earth's rotation at all, which they always thought it was. It's caused by the Earth in its movement either north of the equatorial line of the Milky Way galaxy or south of the equatorial line of the Milky Way galaxy. So it was predicted by the Mayans, and their mathematicians were told all this truth by white men, very tall, blonde, blue-eyed, who came long-haired, didn't shave, Essenes, if you like, and they come under the leadership of a man called Kukulkan. And Kukulkan warned them that if they go back to their evil ways, because he taught them mathematics and all this kind of thing, and the crossing of the Milky Way galaxy gave the date, which converts to 21st of December 2012. However, the Catholic Church is so stupid that they didn't account between 1 BC and 1 AD, there's 365 days there. Then they added 10 days on the 4th of October in the year 1582, which was the same date of the year that the Antichrist, or one of the Antichrists, John Paul II, who was a Jew, the conclave had elected him the most beloved in 25 years of reign. This monster, his mother was a Jew. So they already had a Jew over the Catholic Church. However, the date of the conclave and the date of the changing of the calendar by adding 10 days in 1582 on October the 4th, the next day being October the 15th, was 666 minutes, of sunlight for Rome. So now you've got the 666 from Babylonia coming down through Solomon and received 666 talents of gold, 2 verses in the Old Testament. Then you've got the Revelation 13, 18, 666 talents. Oh, no, here is the number of the beast, right? 66, blah, blah, blah. Which is Solomon, of course. And he received all that gold, and then he was the one who was a demon-possessed man, and that could summon demons to help building in the temple in Jerusalem, which was destroyed in 586 BC by Nebuchadnezzar, the Chaldean king, who got pissed off with Zedekiah because he wouldn't do as he told. So he was a troublemaker. So he killed his 4 sons right before his eyes, blinded him, took him to Babylon where he died, and left the 2 children, which were the girls, because he didn't believe, being a Chaldean, that the line of kings could continue through the females. Now Jeremiah, when the siege was on for 18 months, he took the sacred Ark of the Covenant and put it in a cave and sealed it up. And that's where it remained until the 6th of January 1982, when I was 1982 weeks old, and it was discovered by an American named Ron Wyatt. So that's where the Ark of the Covenant was. is. Israelis who tried to go and look at it were struck dead. And Ron Wyatt verified that. A very honest, nice man. And he verified that he was brought back from America to bring the bodies out. The account was either 4 or 6. It sort of changed with who was telling the story. But Ron Wyatt originally said 4 bodies and body back. So this is what the story is all about. Now, we've got these giants. Now, why would a dinosaur be able to run around eating leaves which are off trees, and trees a couple of 100 feet high or more, and it's reaching up 50 feet, eating all the trees, just like the giraffes do in Africa? And how could that be when a same weight of an animal on the earth today would collapse in a heap? Well, Mars, when we're going back and forth across the Milky Way galaxy equatorial line, as it dropped down, the heavenly side is the side we're on at the moment. We have already crossed back into it. That's why the demons are having so much trouble, because they're packing the shits that with God on the earth, being made known to the world, is a big problem for them. And also, the Catholic Church, via Pope Benedict, has already been told. He accepted the fact that I was Salvador Mundi, the creator and saviour of the earth. So they have a big problem. They're trying to, over this period of time which I was conceived and they knew who the family was and watched my mother, well, this is the story of how the beast was standing before the woman waiting, the dragon was standing before the woman waiting to be delivered. So how that comes about, if you take your 4 or your 5 books of the Torah, you take the next 4, the abomination ones, which is Leviticus, Numbers, Deuteronomy, and what the other one was. And how many times is the word Lord found in it? Well, it's 1404 times. That number in Greek is dragon. So when you look at the book of Revelation, it's talking about the dragon waiting to deliver the baby that's going to be born. That was me, right, on the 11th of January 1944, at the end of the worst world war there was ever, right? That was waiting to devour me, and of course couldn't do so. Now when you read that, it says, oh, he was taken up to heaven, blah blah, sits on the right hand side and sits on the throne, blah blah, goes on. Well, that's because it was read as a vision at the time of 96 AD. So the 96th day of the year is the date I was conceived on in 1943 by the Holy Ghost. I didn't have a natural father on the earth because God cannot have a father. And my alleged father, Reginald, he was very pissed off, and he tormented me every day he got the chance to, either physically with punching or sarcasm. Now, the man was a moron. At the age of 2, I was as smart as any adult. I spoke fluently. I knew things that would stun most people, but he was too stupid to even realise that I was so intelligent at the time. So what happened was Mars, because of the Coriolis effect, as the solar system dropped back down through the line of the equator of the Milky Way galaxy, as it's dropping down, it disturbed Mars. Now, it would have been, originally, you'd have the size of planets. So you'd have Mercury, and then you'd have Mars, then you have Venus, then you have the Earth, and Jupiter, or Saturn and Jupiter, and these all got mixed up. So the reason for that is because as it's turning up and coming back down again, now it's falling down from heaven, the north side of the Milky Way galaxy. The distance out from from the sun of anything, whether it be Jupiter or the Earth or the Moon, they all go around the sun at the same speed, orbital speed. You go further out, it slows down, closer in, it speeds up. So you've got Mars coming in, being displaced, and it's coming into Earth, and it is picked up by the Earth's magnetic field, and they come together, and when they bump together, this altered the gravitational field of the Earth. By that time, Noah had been born and had been on board the ark, so it would make no difference to him, so to speak. And all the animals collapsed under their own weight. So the dinosaurs and things like that were collapsing on their own weight. So they had to go. That's as simple as that. So the tall people, now they've got a femur bone from 1950 that was discovered by a road crew in a cave building a road in Turkey. Now, turkey's not really consumed by the Jews like they'd like it to be. So they made an announcement, and they got a photograph of a guy standing in the museum next to the femur bone. They got a human femur bone that long, and then the giant femur bone, and all these skeletons they've got. And these people would have been, on those calculations, about 16 feet tall. So there were even bigger ones than that. Now, they had difficulty standing up as well, because a man of that height might weigh 1,000 or 1,500 pounds or more. So suddenly the extra weight made him collapse and also die in the flood. Now, the firmament, for example, that covered the earth at the time, it did so because the gravitational field was so weak. And what nourished the plants was a dew. It never rained pre-flood. Now, what causes rain is you've got to have dust in the air, and the dust has got to pick up the moisture and form a crystal. And then the crystal builds up into an ice, and then the weight of the ice makes it fall. Now, pre-flood, this couldn't happen because the weight of the ice wasn't heavy enough for it to fall into gravity. Right? So the conditions were all the same. The temperatures were all the same. So the dew was the determining factor. However, after the flood, suddenly the rain started to occur as well. So the rain of the firmament over the length of period of time of the flood, after the impact of Mars, caused the water of Mars, that's why there's no water on Mars, but you can see where it was with all the canals and so forth, washed onto the earth. So the earth itself raised the water level by 168 feet. Now 168 feet, the Dr. Ballard, who was hired by the CIA as a researcher looking for a submarine or two that had gone down from the Russians in 12,000 feet of water, they gave him this submersible that could go down 12,000 feet, and he located the submarine, and then they built a ship with a bottom out what opened up, a huge ship to take a sub. So this is a monstrous ship. Big claws went down and grabbed the submarine and pulled it back up, and the thing broke in half. So they got a bit of it, but they didn't get all of it. It was after the nuclear reactor and also the plutonium fuel and all that kind of thing, but primarily the rockets. It was after the rocket. So they failed in that attempt. But because he'd done such a good job, he was then able to use as a reward the same equipment. And throughout the Mediterranean and throughout the Black Sea, he was able to drop down and look at 168 feet down, and he found the coastline around the previous level of the sea before the water from Mars and the firmament settled onto the oceans and raised the water up. So that meant that the flood occurred. Now, because of the impact, this caused what happens at the centre of these planets. As the Earth was pouring through from the heavenly realm, at the centre there's a white hole, and all energy was pouring through from that, and that's what gives you the 25 million degrees Fahrenheit and a dropping of temperature at the corona at 11,000 degrees, and then the light sped away and expanded as it's going away because the gravitational field was what restrained the speed of light. So the speed of light is an ongoing debate, if you like, that Einstein said it was static, but of course it's not. It depends on the gravitational field. So the speed of light coming from Betelgeuse, for example, a gigantic star, would be a different speed at the surface than it is on the Earth, or on the Sun itself. Now, the speed of light, by the time it reaches the Earth, it is doing the same number in kilometres per second as the latitude of the King's Coffer in the Great Pyramid. So this was built prior to the flood. So the coffer latitude, longitude from the equator, we have a little silencer here. That's okay. So the coffer is the King's Coffer. So when we went into, when I had that, they tried to stop me going into the King's Coffer with a heart attack. And however, when I got into the King's Coffer, I laid down in it and I put my arms up, and laid them flat against the width of the coffer and straight up and down, if you like, towards the lip that runs around the inside, and of course it fitted me perfectly. And the reason for that is it's built for the Lord, it's altered to the Lord. So that was all we needed. Right? So we defeated the Jews on that point. When we went in there, that was it. It was then revealed by myself in an upload that the angle that is formed by the points where I'm laying and putting my hands up like that, that angle which goes up like so to the point is supposedly the same angle as the face angle of the Great Pyramid. But it's not. It's slightly out. So with a CAD program you can work it out because the figures are a bit that long. And it turns out that the base of the pyramid, based on those numbers, is short by my height. So the displacement factor of the 36524.24 inches around the base of the pyramid is shy by my height. Now isn't that interesting?
So
now I can only reveal these things because I am the old man in the flesh. I've come down again, and because I can reveal these things because I am the comforter. Why? Where I was raised for 942 days, or till I was 942 days old, the distance to the South Pole in the concordance is the word comforter. Right? 3875. Where I was maternity ward at St Margaret's, which is slightly north in a place called Darlinghurst in Sydney, the distance to the South Pole is an extra 2 miles, and that number is 3877. That is how many times, how many verses the word God is found. And the word God is, of course, in these verses, sometimes mentioned God said this and God did that and blah, 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 blah. So there's 2 gods here, maybe 3 gods somewhere else, and you add them up and you get 4443 in 3877 verses. And that is the distance between the 2 houses I built in Canada, which is 444.3 kilometres apart. Now I can talk for 2 days underwater about that. The miracles are so astounding that you're only listening now to the 4th time, if you are listening at all, at the other ones. So I'm repeating a little bit. But I've been doing this for years now, and the amount of times they try to kill me is, and many, many different ways, is extraordinary.
Now,
but it doesn't work.
Today, these are the miracles of today in your second incarnation. What you did as Jesus, turning water into wine, walking on water, and all of those things, you did do. However, you've said, well, that was for the people at that time. They needed to see these supernatural occurrences. However, today we live in a scientific era where everybody demands evidence. And
still not good enough.
The lying wonders, if you like, of magicians. I mean, you look at a magician and you think, my God, you know, we know that it's magic, and they're being aided and abetted by, a lot of the time, invisible forces. If it's not just downright trickery, then they are aided by invisible forces, etc. So today, it's not the turning water into wine, walking through walls, as people say. You know, he uses the door. You can do that.
It's turning beer into piss, isn't it?
It's the finding of these miracles hidden within the creation, which is the record and memorial of who God in the flesh is today. And it's way more spectacular. It's like finding a needle within all of the atoms of the universe, isn't it?
Oh, that's right.
Not a needle within a haystack, a needle within all of the atoms.
Well, the mathematical odds are so extreme that it's likened to finding one atom in the entire universe. Right, the number is so long. So just at one point there, the miracles of Jesus was given a ratio 10 to the 184th power to get all these miracles performed by Jesus at the time. I do thousands of them. There's no number that can calculate that. So they are trying to kill you. The demons died. They were huge, but everyone was huge in those days. So when these giants mated with women because they were fair, the women were bloody 18 feet tall too. So whatever the case, whatever it was, it wasn't a big deal in that sense. So the offspring they had, they of course reincarnate, and the reincarnation of these demons for judgment. It's all a matter of judgment, repentance and forgiveness and all that kind of thing, which of course they won't do. And they invade people. So over time people have got smaller. I mean, I described to you the other day that when I looked at Joseph when I was a young man, he was a monster, huge. The people at Jerusalem at that time, the average height was 5 feet 11. I think the average height now is about 5 foot 7, right, for a human being. So that was much bigger. If they say, come on son, you're going to the cross, these big monsters grab you, you're going. Right? It's as simple as that. So these things have to come to pass. So people are smaller today because of the gravity is higher. Right? So when the pouring through of the matter for the earth had reached a point where Mars was punched into it, you could say that the combined gravitational forces were such an impact that it actually closed off the flowing through of energy, and from that point onwards we don't need it, because that was reaching that point in time, and the gravity increased dramatically. So molecular attraction of the atoms increased, so everything was semi-compressed into a more denser period. So that's what actually happened. So the kids will get it, oldies won't get it. The prophecy is I'll be rejected by everybody. Well, that's holding true. However, the first woman I married, where she grew up and where I grew up, our bedrooms were 118.22 kilometres apart. We can do that with GPS software. You can't do it with Google Earth because they keep changing it. We've done them 3 times we've had to go at Google Earth, and 3 times they keep on changing the numbers. So what that means is that number is Psalms 118:22. Have you heard the stone the builders rejected has become the head of the pyramid? Changed a word. It used to be pyramid, they changed it to capstone.
Corner.
Cornerstone. Corner.
Corner.
Just a corner, yeah.
Yeah. Which leaves the reader confused. What the hell does that mean?
What does that mean? Yeah.
But when you understand it's the pyramid, which could be seen from Jerusalem under the moonlight, it's spectacular,
like a mirror,
translucent.
A mirror reflecting this white marble up into the sky against the clouds or up into the atmosphere. And the moonlight would shine off it and get the right angle, you can see it. So that's what that's all about. Now we go for time.
Well, we've got, what,
about
13?
Now?
No,
well,
we've got 13.
42, how much of them have you got?
Well, we're up to, let's see, my glasses on, 41, rather 47 minutes. We've got 13 minutes.
All right, so go get your baseball bats, because you're in a war with demons that are inhabiting people, and they want your babies, and they will torture them to death in many macabre ways. They bleed their blood, they put the bodies into their own abattoirs and mince it all up, and that goes out through McDonald's or so. So stop buying McDonald's. This is the fact. This is what happened. This was discovered in America some time ago, and it was admitted to by the
Finkelstein, rabbi from New York.
Rabbi Finkelstein, who was interviewed by a Christian guy on his radio program, and he said the whole thing. This is what we do. It's too late, right? We've already done it.
Audacity.
You want some more shackles? Some more shackles to go to Las Vegas, you were saying? Pay me out, right? Anyhow, the Jews fixed him, because shortly afterwards, maybe 2 weeks later, he was dead.
Now, also, you can look up, if it's still available, the Harold Rosenthal interview from 1976, documented by, what was his name, Walter somebody, but it's on our Scribd site, Harold Rosenthal interview, and it's an admission by Rosenthal, who was bragging, boasting as a Jew, and he was saying, well, I don't know why everybody wants to keep it all so secret. I think we should be telling the world exactly what it is that we are doing. However, he ended up being dead sometime later. His bragging saw him into an early grave. But he explained very openly, because he was a bragger, what it is that the Jew world order, it's an ancient plan, Jew world order, not the New World Order, it's ancient and it's the Jew world order. Jew world domination. He explained the 5 lies that they perpetuate. First of all, that Jesus was a Jew. The second one is the lie of the Holocaust did not happen. And he was amazed when the interviewer was saying, you know, don't you understand what... He didn't see any problem with it. So what, it's a lie. It's all about the shekels.
Too late.
Reparations racket.
Everyone believes it?
Yes, the other one was that Jews are... it's a religion. No, it's not. It's a race. He said it's a race. It's all about a race of people. Barbarism, and they are...
Cannibalism. Child sacrifice.
Yes, this race.
So if you're a Jew listening to this, stop being a Jew.
Defect.
Oh. Remember that the first believers in Jesus were Jews. You got Yitzhak Kaduri. He's saying that
your Messiah
is here and he's going to be talking to you from a faraway place. Why? Because he didn't know, because of the likes of Fukushima. The Northern Hemisphere is doomed.
So that is
I
why
can stop it,
but
I need your help.
That is why the nations come to where the Lord is. Zion is where God is. He is here in Australia, Tugum, place of rest. 51 minutes we're up to, so we've got 9 minutes to go. Now, Ashley wanted to talk about, just mention addictions. People are addicted.
Well, you've got nothing to live for, so you start going into something that gives you a high for a touch of paradise for a short period of time where you don't really give a damn. And then afterwards you've got the downer, so then you've got to start stealing to get your hit once again. So it is a very, very dangerous thing to be getting involved in addictions. But when I was in Africa, a fellow I knew, his house was robbed. And he brought the local witch doctor in and took him into the bedroom, took a piece of brown paper and stuck it on behind the bedroom door. And then got some drugs and so forth and mixed up and set it on fire, and then the witch doctor left. And he could see, like a TV set come up, and he see who was doing it. And it turned out to be the boy that was working for him for 18 years that had knocked over his house. So when he came out after this trance state, the boy was gone. Because he knew the doctor was what the witch doctor was doing, and that how they, part of their society, they could do that sort of thing. However, that particular drug that he used, which I later sent to, the name of it, I sent to England, because it instantly cures addiction. Take the drug, all your addictions are gone. It takes you back in your mind to where you first had your first shot of heroin. It could be in some sleazy shithole somewhere. Takes you back there. That's why actually drug addicts will go back to the same place where they first become a drug addict. What's that one here?
Oh, I've opened up Webster's dictionary, addiction.
Oh, really?
Now, read dictionaries because everything's been altered. Words have been dumbed down themselves. Addiction, I always use 1828 Noah Webster's dictionary. We've got about 5 minutes. It's an online dictionary. Google search it, because Noah knowledge was brilliant, and this was his addiction. Number 1, the act of devoting or giving up in practice, the state of being devoted. So today we're talking about being addicted to drugs, alcohol, sexual immoral behaviours, perversions, all these kinds of things. You've given over your mind to it, basically. And so your mind first, your body follows. And then you become trapped and ensnared. It is a spiritual condition also, because once you're in there, you find it practically impossible to get out. Well, as Jesus, he talked about resisting. Right? You know that these things have got you, then you resist. It takes about 21 days to break through where the resistance is no longer being applied. And that's employing the will of the mind to overcome these addictions. Now, on the other hand, there are also angels that when you're completely got your they will help you. I've witnessed that myself, where the angels are there.
The demons are waiting there.
Yeah, these are doors. You know, every time you open a door, you know, drugs, alcohol, sexually addictive behaviour, immorality, all of these things, these perversions, it is an open door in the spiritual realm, and demons do walk right in and they occupy your vessel. To overcome it, you've got to first of all engage your will, make up your mind you are not going to do this anymore, and then ask your angels to help you resist and to overcome. There are times, many people have witnessed this, where they
don't
have...
Don't forget, you can use a cricket bat when you join the Batman Club, and go and work over anyone who is...
The rod of iron.
Anyone who has taken your kids, sort them out.
We've got 5 minutes still. I'm looking at the audacity. We've got 5 minutes still. Okay, yeah. So addictions, let's cover this, because there are many people who are suffering through their addictions. Make up your mind to get rid of it. Employ some strength of will. Ask your angels. Everybody's
You've got to focus, right?
Do 2 angels to help them. Ask your angels to help you and focus on it. Get real, get serious. There is no excuse.
Leave it, focus.
Right.
Simple as that.
Okay.
It's all done by these demons that want to destroy all humanity, and you've got to become a proper man or a proper woman.
A real man.
It's in the Colburn Bible.
Actually, that's what we'll devote our
we'll
next program
to. The Colburn Bible. I'll tell you what that's all about.
Yeah, we'll read from the Colburn.
This is based on Jesus' teaching in Glastonbury.
Yes. Silence is golden.
Is that it now?
Not yet. We've still got a few minutes to go, so we could just...
It's good to leave a couple of minutes.
Okay, that's it.
Okay,
We've just got a
all
word
right.
from our producer.